And welcome to another scintillating episode of Movie Battleground. I am JTH. I have no idea when this video is going to be put up, so just to play it safe, I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So now that the Yuletide greetings are taken care of, this is Chris Dohmen. It's Isaac the Freak Horvat. These guys need no introduction. If they want to give introductions or if they just want to get it on, let's not waste any more time. You guys want to do it?
As I seem to have copyrighted on this very channel, let's do this.
I love it.
All right. So the format is pretty much the same as round one. I think both of you guys are familiar with round one. Basically, it's the first of four. There's going to be four main round questions. In this particular case, neither of you have shared each other's answers, so you're going to be going in completely blind. In the event that there is a 4-0 knockout, which I highly doubt that will be the case, we're going to have speed round questions until somebody gets to 4 points. Each debate period will be 5 minutes, unless each of you wishes to use your round extension, which will extend a debate period from 5 minutes to 6 minutes. You only get one, however, throughout the entire game, so use it wisely if you wish to use it. So, without further ado, let's get into the match. So, the first question, this might seem a little bit outdated because it seems like I've had a birthday and a half since the Oscars happened, but we want to ask both of you guys, what was the most deserving Oscar win at the 2018 Academy Awards? Isaac, you are the higher-ranked player, so you will get first crack at this question. What was the most deserving Oscar win at this year's Academy Awards?
Well, as a movie buff this year, the Academy Awards kind of disappointed me this year. There weren't really that many surprises. There wasn't any one movie really that I was that passionate about, except one that wasn't even nominated that I think was the best movie of the year, Wind River. But so there wasn't a lot to be excited about for me with these Academy Awards, but there was one. There was one that stood out to me, and as soon as I read the question, I knew exactly what my answer would be, and that would be Blade Runner 2049 and Roger Deakins for cinematography. Most deserving, 100%.
All right. So it's Blade Runner 2049 for the Freaks standpoint. What does Chris Dohmen have to counter with that for most deserving Oscar win?
The most deserving Oscar win is a tough question because you could define it as one of two ways. You could go towards the person who's been nominated the most amount of times without a win, or you could go with someone who has been just knocking it out of the park with their career from day one. And this actor appeared in films like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. He gave an Oscar-worthy performance in Sid and Nancy, but received no recognition for it. He gave an Oscar-nominated performance in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I am, of course, talking about Gary Oldman, the man who is a chameleon in the acting world. And with the fact that it took the Academy this long to recognize a role that where he gave 100% and finally proved that he was long overdue for a statue. Gary Oldman.
All right. I completely agree with both of these choices, so this is going to be a very interesting debate period. Your 5 minutes will begin when one of you starts speaking.
Okay, you started off with there's one of two ways to define deserving, and then kind of defined it the same way both times as it's you and I see what you did. It makes sense.
No,
it's about the career.
It is about the career, and also it's about the official recognition for it. Roger Deakins has been nominated 13 times, whereas Gary Oldman's been only nominated once.
Yeah, okay.
And the fact that Oldman has done for acting what Deakins has done for cinematography, so we're essentially fighting for the same kind of.
No, here's the thing. This is not about career. This is what drives me crazy when people talk about deserving winners and then only talk about people's career. It's not about the career. It's what was most deserving this year. This year, Gary Oldman did not have the best performance. I'm sorry. The award was given to him because he has incredible performances in the past. And I agree, he should have won before this, and he's had Oscar-winning performances before this. But this is not the role that he should have won. This was a career token Oscar. He didn't even have the best performance that was nominated. There were two others, Kaluuya and Daniel Day-Lewis and Timothée Chalamet. They all could have won, and I think they were more deserving. He gave a standard biopic performance. Roger Deakins, the cinematography in Blade Runner had better cinematography, I'm sorry, than any other movie this year. When we're talking about most deserving, we're talking about this year, and that cinematography stands out.
Okay, yeah, but you want to talk about giving a token Oscar? Deakins, again, has been nominated 13 times, so they could have given it to him on any of those other films, a couple of which would have been more deserving in this case. However, over a film like Mudbound, where it was our first female not Oscar nomination in cinematography, frankly speaking, that should have been given to because A, it was a much better shot film at times than Blade Runner. Don't get me wrong, Blade Runner had a lot of great shots, but that was because it was helped by the score and by the visual effects, not just cinematography alone. Mudbound had pretty much just cinematography and set design. And it was just as beautiful from a filmmaking perspective.
And Gary Oldman, the reason his performance stands out is because of prosthetics and makeup. Everything has something that supports it. Cinematography, sure, is supported by music and atmosphere and directing and all that stuff, but it stands above itself. I'm saying that the cinematography in Blade Runner 49, compared to the other nominations, stands above those. Gary Oldman's is forgettable. I'm sorry. In 20 years, we're going to be talking about Gary Oldman winning this Oscar as like, oh yeah, that was a token award. No, that it should not have. It was not even the best performance.
You can say the same exact thing about Deakins winning for cinematography.
Not at all.
Literally, both of these wins were the token career Oscar.
Not at all.
You cannot make the argument against that.
No, not at all. Because here's the thing: if Deakins had done a movie that like Star Wars: The Last Jedi and won for cinematography for that, then you would say it's a token award because you can see that cinematography is not up to level with the stuff he's done before. That is not the case here. It's as good and better than he's ever done before in cinematography. There are moments in Blade Runner 2049 that stand out over any other thing he's ever done. Gary Oldman is not doing anything new there. I'm sorry, he's not doing anything new. Several people have played Winston Churchill before, and I think they've done just as good of a job. There's nothing in that performance that stands out as this is his deserving award.
Okay, you're right. On the one hand, sure. But again, put in someone like Bradford Young for Blade Runner 2049. Put someone like David Tattersall for Blade Runner 2049. They could give you a product that is just as great as what Deakins gave.
Oh my gosh.
Oldman showed through not just, yes, he had support from the prosthetics makeup, but like we both already established, there's a lot that goes into these categories in terms of what actually gets them the win. But it's the fact that Oldman was able to commit to the character, the fact that he actually went through and listened to old Churchill speeches, rewound them, listened to them for days on end until he managed to perfect the voice and the mannerism and the delivery of Winston Churchill, which is something that not a lot of actors who have played Winston Churchill have done, because most of them just sort of do, sort of a typical impression where they do the, cigar chain chomping, and that's all they do. Oldman actually became Winston, just like he became Sid Vicious, just like he became so many of these Sirius Black or any of his other iconic characters that he's played throughout his entire career. So, again, I'm not disowning Deakins. I will never disown Father Deakins.
You're just saying he didn't deserve his award more than Gary Oldman deserved his.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Oldman didn't even give that good a performance. You're talking about deserving? No, he didn't just become Winston Churchill. You want to talk about who becomes Churchill? Wow. Daniel Day-Lewis. He should have won.
All right. You guys both got a lot in there for that first 5 minutes. I was very impressed by both of you. So each of you will now get your closing arguments. So Isaac, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right. As I've said before, this isn't just about deserving of a career. It's about deserving this year. Oldman didn't even give the best performance of his career or of this year at all, of 2017, not this year. Oof, wow, this episode's going late. Deakins did arguably have the best cinematography of the year. Blade Runner 49, there's moments in that movie that stand out visually more than like anything. The whole Las Vegas sequence with the orange lighting and the statues, or the end with the snow, or the rain sequence with the lights. There's so many moments at the beginning with the fog in the farm with the Dave Bautista, all that. Every moment, Dave Bautista, the wrestler, right? At the beginning of Blade Runner 20.
That's not Dave Bautista, but keep
What?
going.
Whoever his name is. Yeah, Drax, right?
That's not Dave Bautista. That's a different actor.
Drax. What's his name? I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. If I was gonna say, it's not about the career, it's about this year. But if you wanted to make it about the career, we could do that. You brought up Oldman's nominations and everything. Deakins has been nominated 14 times and never won. So I don't understand how somebody who should have won before not winning more times than the other person being less deserving. That doesn't make sense to me. If you want to talk about career, I think Deakins does deserve it more based on his career. Oldman doesn't, but it's not about that. Even that. Oldman had a forgettable performance as Churchill. The Darkest Hour was forgettable. And it was the least deserving award. People will look back on this and say it was a token award. People will look back on 2049 and remember that cinematography.
Take it away, Chris.
Cinematography, while good at times in Blade Runner 2049, was not as memorable as the visual effects or the performances by Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling, or even the score by Johan Johansson, rest in peace. The Darkest Hour survived as a film from an Oscars perspective and from a box office perspective on Gary Oldman alone. He had to carry this entire production, and he does so brilliantly. And that's the advantage over Daniel Kaluuya, who had an incredible script to back him up, over Daniel Day-Lewis, who's Daniel Day-Lewis. And he's already had 3 Oscar wins. So you know for a fact the Academy is not going to give him the win, because the Academy does have a political system in play, and this year they shifted the cards around so that way it would go to Oldman. That is the simple truth of it. Deakins, they've been screwing him for a long time, so they finally just decided to throw him a bone on a great job, but not his best job as a cinematographer. Whereas with Oldman, the simple fact is Darkest Hour doesn't work unless Oldman gives the performance of a lifetime. And he does.
Oh, great. That was a very strong arguments from both of you. I have a slight favorite, however. I like the fact that both of you did a good job building up your pick for most deserving Oscar win. Both of you did get some good shots on the other one, talking about the overall, especially with Isaac. You said it was a little bit more of a balanced field in the Best Actor role. It was definitely some actors that could have deserved the Oscars, so that kind of hurt Dohmen's case when it came to Oldman as the best choice. Dohmen, I think you could have helped your argument if you had brought up a couple more of the other options that were in Best Cinematography that could have made a case against Blade Runner 2049. I don't recall that you were able to do that. So there wasn't really anything for me to mash up against cinematography for Blade Runner 2049 that I could have said, yes, that could have made a run against Blade Runner 2049. Whereas Isaac did bring up some other actors that could have contended with Oldman for Best Actor. So I am going to have to give the first point to Isaac there. With
the only thing I had said was that I just brought Mudbound as an example and that was it.
Yeah, but to me,
can you tell it's been a minute since we had the Oscars?
Yeah,
it is.
So Isaac goes up 1-0, but Dohmen, this is familiar territory. You dropped down 1-0 in your first match. You came back to win, so it's nothing new for you. So so Dohmen's on here, so I guess we got to talk about Star Wars. We got to talk about the prequels because everybody loves about the prequels. So this is an interesting question that was brought before us. We want each of you to recast one Star Wars character for the better, and we were already given note that it cannot be Hayden Christensen in the prequels. So, yeah, because everybody wants to change that but can't. So, yeah, Christensen's off the table.
I don't either.
So, Dohmen, take it away. Who in the Star Wars lore needs to get the kibosh and get the hell out of there?
Okay, so the first thing you have to ask yourself is who actually contributes the least amount to what they are given from the script? Is it either a great character, or is it a character that's well written but poorly performed, or a character that is so horribly written but so excellently performed, or so clunkily performed that they're memorable? I am, of course, talking about Hux. General Armitage Hux from the sequel trilogy. You know, Donald Gleason is not a terrible actor. In fact, he's actually a good actor, but this is a role that he is horribly miscast for because it's the wrong kind of writing. The writing basically has him as a joke, as a complete folly of a joke. And simply put, you would have to find an actor that can only commit to being just a joke when it comes to his performances. So, for example, someone maybe like Steven Dorff, who, sure, he can shine in something like Blade, but then you put him in something like Alone in the Dark. Again, he's a badass, but he's a complete joke. So, and honestly, he probably would carry Hux a little better because he can restrain himself correctly, unlike Donald, who had way too many over-the-top yelly moments in The Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So, there's my answer, General Hux.
Okay, for the record, the question was recast one Star Wars character, so I guess it's replaced Donald Gleason. Are you going to use Steven Dorff?
Yes, I'm replacing Donald Gleason with Steven Dorff.
Okay.
That'll do. I don't know what happened, but the original question I thought was specifically to the prequels.
The question I have here is recast one Star Wars character for the better that isn't Hayden Christensen in the prequels. So he was like the only one that was off the table.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I understood the question of just in the prequels. That wasn't Hayden Christensen in the prequels. Wow.
Well, that's all right. There's plenty of bad choices you can make in them prequels.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
There's actually only a couple, but it's really interesting.
Shoot. Yeah, this is going to be really interesting. Oh, man. All right. Let's go. This just changes this fight so much. Okay. Well, my Star Wars character, across the board, not just in the prequels, that I would recast for the better, is Jake Lloyd in Star Wars Episode 1. I would recast him with Zac Efron. And face is everything. Face is everything. All right. Yes, I cannot wait to get into this, so I'm just going to stop talking. Let's go. Can't wait. Is it too late to extend this round?
Unfortunately, it is.
Dang. All right.
Just so you know, Chris, I had you on screen just for that because I knew what you were going to do as soon as you heard that. So, yeah, the movie Battleground folks have got a great picture to look forward to for this match. So,
I feel like we should extend this anyway.
This is going to be so much fun on movie Battleground. Take it away, 5 minutes. This is going to be grand.
What? Okay. Unlike Zac Efron, who actually, does have charm and charisma and can carry a film nowadays, people tend to forget that back in the day, he wasn't that great of an actor. Look at Charlie St. Cloud. Look at his appearance on NCIS. Look at the first High School Musical. He is a bad actor in those films. He would not have done much better than poor Jake Lloyd, given the direction and the writing of George freaking Lucas, of all people, who, granted, I love him as a storyteller, but that's about it. Nobody would have survived the role of Anakin in Episode 1 because it was just a horrible idea from the get-go. There was nothing you could have done, at least with someone like Hux, who was being written by professionals here. Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote fucking Empire, and J.J. Abrams, who is a great writer in his own regard, they still crap the bed on his character. And Donald couldn't help bring that to life. So, it's like, are you just trying to make incompetence worse, or are you trying to, save a competent idea but was given sloppy execution?
No, here's the thing. I disagree with you in the idea that Hux was a competent idea. He wasn't. He's a throwaway character. He's not supposed to be memorable. He has a purpose. He serves the purpose, and Donald Gleason does that purpose proud. It's perfectly acceptable. There's a lot more problems in the new movies than General Hux. General Hux is the least of those movies' problems. There's a lot, and he's the least of it. He shows up, he does his job, he does the villain talk, and he does what he's supposed to do. I disagree very heavily on Zac Efron. He's a better actor than Jake Lloyd. Even back then, in 2002, he appeared on Firefly, and even there he showed more range and acting ability than Jake Lloyd. He's a year older. He was more mature. He brought something to the role. There's not many things in the Star Wars universe that annoys me.
And who was the creative force behind Firefly? One of the best directors of all time, Joss Whedon. Yeah.
He's one of the best. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, okay. He's miles better than George Lucas anyway, in terms of how being able to work with actors to give a great performance. Take a look at any of Joss's work with the Avengers films. You get great acting performances in those films. You can't get that from George. The best we got from him was Ewan, Hayden's body acting in 3, and Christopher Lee. That's about it in terms of the acting in the prequels, because those are accomplished actors who are great at one particular craft, and they can do that. Jake Lloyd was screwed either way. You put another kid actor under George's supervision, they're screwed.
I disagree. The reason Jake Lloyd is screwed in that role is because he's bad. He's bad. Let's not say it's George's fault or this person's fault. He's just a bad actor. Jake Lloyd is a bad actor. That's why he hasn't worked. That's why he hasn't worked. See, he retired from acting in 2001. Interesting, right before Zac Efron really started taking off. Zac Efron, if he would have been cast, would have improved those movies. It's about making this better. I'm sorry, that's what it is. Any other child actor pretty much makes this better. Zac Efron, I think, has the best ability to do it.
Well, okay,
I'm sorry.
yes,
You
but that's
recast,
yes.
recast
and to be fair,
General Hux, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, it does. It makes the First Order. It makes the First Order a more credible threat, because here's the thing.
Donald Gleason is an incredible actor.
No. It makes them a more credible threat because Hux is the gateway, is the in between the ground troops and Snoke. You need to have someone who is great at actually being able to be that bridge between the troops on the ground and your overly powerful supreme leader. And Donald Gleason, as good of an actor as he is, again, outside of this franchise, he can't carry that kind of menace. He can't carry that kind of evil that you actually have to be able to portray.
Oh, I disagree. The speech in Force Awakens, he shows incredible menace, and then he does a great job at turning this powerful speech and then turning and groveling before the leader. That's what you want, and he does a fine job. I'm sorry, recasting that.
No, he's laughable.
It doesn't change the movie.
So stupid.
No,
honestly, Hitler is laughing at him. That's how bad it was. But
well, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm just saying. Never expected that one to come out, but yeah, General Hux. I'm sorry, Donald Gleason does a fine job with what he does, and recasting that doesn't change it. There's not that big of a problem. One of the big problems with the prequels, and with that movie, The Phantom Menace in particular, is Jake Lloyd's performance. You can't argue that his performance is bad and arguably one of the worst things of the movie. And replacing him,
but again, that's not his fault. That's because of bad writing and bad directing. Which, okay, can any actor convincingly say, "Are you an angel"?
I would think so. I think Zac Efron could do
it. So basically, what I've learned so far is that Hitler laughs at Star Wars roles. So we are pretty much at a dead heat right now. So, my God. Come on, you guys. Don't.
You know what? I'm just gonna throw the match. I'm gonna just retire and never come back.
I had to process that, man. Hitler is laughing at him. I was like, what? Oh, too good.
I am so sorry, everyone. That was bad.
Well, when the folks ever get to see this, I'm sure they'll get a great laugh. I don't. What am I supposed to do from here? I guess I'm going to go into final arguments that don't involve Hitler or evil German dictators or trying to explain good recasting that. Chris, I'm done. Go.
Jeremy, I am sorry, first off, but okay. Steven Dorff would be a great replacement for General Hux because unlike Donald, who is not unable to convincingly show menace and cowardice, Steven Dorff is able to do it, having done enough experience from playing villains in film. This was Donald's first big villain role, and it shows, sadly, and it does take away, at least for me, the threat of the First Order, considering that this is the villain next to Kylo Ren we are seeing the most on screen. Hence why you need to have someone who can actually really show that. And Phasma was a complete waste, so let's not open up that can of worms. Whereas with Anakin, you had to completely rewrite that story. You had to get Hayden in from the get-go. You had to age him up a little bit, bring the timeline a little closer, and that would have saved it. Not switching out Jake Lloyd for some other kid actor who would have still crumbled under the direction of Faster and More Intense.
All right. Nice recovery, Chris. You're almost forgiven. So, Isaac, take it away.
All right. No Hitler in my closing argument. The question was recast a Star Wars character for the better. Make it better. Steven Dorff, all respect to him, he's a supporting actor who I don't believe is on the same level as Donald Gleason. And I don't think recasting him changes that role for the better at all. It might make it worse. I don't think Hux is that big of a problem anyway, but that's beside the point. The point is that Jake Lloyd's performance in Episode 1 is notoriously bad. I think you could have gotten Steven Spielberg to direct Jake Lloyd, and it still would have been horrible, because he is a bad actor. Zac Efron is a good actor, and he performed well as a child in his supporting roles on Firefly and the CBS Cop Show and other things. I think recasting that role makes that movie better, more watchable. I have the hardest time rewatching Phantom Menace, and it's not because of Jar Jar or any of the other things in that movie. It's because of Jake Lloyd, and I think replacing him makes the Star Wars universe better. I don't even think that many people have a problem with Hux, and replacing him with Steven Dorff certainly doesn't make it any better. No Hitler.
Yeah. God, that was a mess. Good Lord. I hope you're happy, Chris. This match is going to go down in infamy.
Thank you so much.
I have to put the Hitler remarks aside and try to come up with
I never thought I'd hear those words. I want that on a shirt. I have to put the Hitler remarks aside.
We'll sell them outside the White House. How about that?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
Bringing him into it too.
They'll get together and they'll have lunch with Vishnu and with fucking Kim Jong Un. How about that?
Wow.
For those that are not aware, this is actually recorded a couple days after Easter. So yeah, bringing up the Jesus Christ, yeah, that was outstanding. That was fitting as hell. So yeah, Jesus and Hitler in the same topic. That's a new record.
Wow.
Now, putting all of that aside, let's now go into the actual debate, which was hard to do 3.5 minutes into it. Both of you made up some good points. Isaac, you really struck the point home that Jake Lloyd really just doesn't look like he belongs in the movie, regardless of the direction of director and plot and all that. It really just doesn't look like he belongs in the movie, and I definitely agree with that. Dohmen definitely brings up some good points as well about maybe Gleason is miscast. However, I do think Isaac actually did bring up some good points about the fact that the character is kind of forgettable. He does serve his purpose regardless of what the character may be. Dohmen did do a good job defending that. So I think what it did come down to in the end, and no, Chris, it was not the Hitler remarks, so you can be assured of that. I think it was just simply the fact that Isaac just did a good enough job talking about the fact that Gleason's role doesn't really affect the movie enough that recasting it is going to improve the movie enough, whereas I think Jake Lloyd being replaced, it can't hurt the movie anymore. So I think he really did a good job hitting that home. And he did bring up the fact that Zac Efron was good in Firefly, so I think that was definitely a good point. You almost had it, Dohmen, when you brought up the fact that Lucas was the problem and nothing could have redeemed it. But I think Isaac had just enough to get that point there. So it was very, very close. It was very, very close. I will say that. But yeah, I am going to have to give the point to Isaac there. But that was a very hard fought round, putting all the dictator stuff aside.
Well, how about that? This is a video of firsts. You got your first horrible line said, and I lost on a Star Wars question.
I can't believe I beat Chris Dohmen on a Star Wars question. I'm cool with that.
So that puts Isaac up 0. That's not what I was expecting so far, but it has happened so far. So we now go back a little ways. We go back to, once again, the Oscars, because everybody remembers the Oscars. Breaking news for people that forgot, Guillermo del Toro won an Oscar for Best Director. So we want to ask both you guys, we want you both to pitch Guillermo del Toro's next movie. So the floodgates are open. It's wide open. Anybody can say whatever the hell they want. Let's hope no dictators will be involved in this pitch. So, Isaac, what do you mean, Chris? What do you mean? Don't even try. Don't even try. So, Isaac, take it away whenever you're ready.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because my pitch involves a dark horror movie where Jesus Christ comes back forward in time and fights Hitler. No, that's not the fight. That's not my fight. I am pitching Guillermo del Toro's next movie as Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, an adaptation of that book and that series of books and stories. There was an announcement back in 2016 that he would be developing this project with maybe being attached to direct, and I can't think off the top of my head in recent memory a more perfect pairing of project and director. The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I have on my bookshelf right over there, is this collection of scary stories that you tell in the dark. Plot twist. But it's perfect, and I have this great setup. I don't know how many people have seen the movie Trick or Treat, but I want an anthology type of horror movies, or a horror movie where there's different stories from this. And I don't know, I'm not... Guillermo can do whatever he wants, but just off the top of my head, I was thinking of like an older movie type of feel where kids go on a camping trip and they're sitting around telling these stories, and the stories are the movies, and you get this anthology movie where the stories they're telling are what you're seeing on screen, and maybe at the end of the movie it's revealed that they're in one of the stories themselves and they all get killed or whatever else. And I just really want this to happen. I really want to see the scary stories on screen. I want Guillermo del Toro to direct this, and that's my pitch.
All right, interesting pick from Isaac. That'll be interesting to see where he goes with that. So, Chris, take it away whenever you're ready. Pitch your Guillermo del Toro idea.
Well, speaking of dictators, are you familiar? Are you familiar with Malcor or Sauron? Two of the greatest dictators in all of fantasy. And there's a story about the First Age, as it were, called The Silmarillion, which, yes, is a prequel to The Lord of the Rings, written by J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, as a lot of people know, Guillermo was attached to direct the Hobbit films when there was just two of them before Peter Jackson was forced to take over and direct the now trilogy of Hobbit films that are even worse than the Star Wars prequels. But hey, that's neither here nor there. A movie, and a film series set in this that's based on the Silmarillion would be incredible, because with Guillermo's vision and his ability to tighten up great stories like Silmarillion, he could honestly make films that rival or are even better than Lord of the Rings. Potentially, because of his creative eye, the way he uses effects in the films, the way he uses the prosthetics and the makeup. Plus, let's be honest, it's just a vehicle to get Doug Jones another great role as this super scary monster, which we all want. We all need more of. Yes, please. Silmarillion, let's go.
All right. So both of you are kind of going on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to this Del Toro pitch. So take it away. 5 minutes will begin when one of you starts talking.
So, Isaac, you basically just want us to see Are You Afraid of the Dark, the movie.
I've never seen Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It is
really?
Kids coming around a campfire. They tell scary stories. They throw some powder on the fire, and the stories that they tell are the episode. Literally.
Interesting.
You just pitched Are You Afraid of the Dark, the series. And I'm sorry, you just gave me a great argument for the rest of this fight.
Like I said, it can be whatever it wants, but I don't want like magic on the fire and all that stuff. I want it to be like in flashbacks. Have you seen Trick or Treat?
Yeah, and here's my next problem. Anthology horror movies don't sell. Look at Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, where it would try to deviate and become an anthology film from the rest of the series. It is one of the lowest box office earnings of the entire Halloween franchise. Trick or Treat, Mike Flanagan, great film, but it made shit at the box office. It made very well in home video sales, which is why it has become this cult film, but it doesn't sell. Yeah, dude, great movie. It doesn't sell.
Yeah, no.
Whereas with Silmarillion, you're already coming off.
Guillermo del Toro doesn't worry about selling though. Like he doesn't worry about being marketable. That's his whole thing. He just made a deal with Fox today. It just came out that they're developing a wing of Fox to produce genre movies. Just that part of Fox will be dedicated to genre, and Guillermo is going to be attached to it. He's never worried about that. He's worried about his projects. And this is a project that he said he's cared about. This is a project that fits him perfectly. It takes him back to his horror roots. And he doesn't, I don't care about marketability. I don't care if it sells pictures. I want Guillermo del Toro to do what he wants, and he wants to do scary stories.
I want him to do that as well. But again, I'm only trying to come at this from just a perspective of how's the film itself going to turn out, because, and again, going back to what I was trying to say before I was cut off, and dude, it's all good. I did the same thing to you. We're good. What the reason that Guillermo should do Silmarillion, in addition to, because again, he was supposed to do The Hobbit. Imagine what could have been with those movies, but instead we got the three that we got. That's fine. But they all three of those made a crap ton of money, as did the first three. So here's the thing too. Guillermo could do either of these stories and it would be amazing. So it's either which one is the, secure the bank in the pay, or secure the paycheck in the bank, or which one is the passion project that would really fulfill his soul. That's what it really comes down to, is which one should he do?
Yeah, and I care more about an artist's vision getting to the screen than I do about cashing a paycheck. And as far as the Silmarillion goes versus The Hobbit and all that stuff, like, yes, the Hobbit movies are terrible, and I wish Guillermo would have directed them really badly. The Silmarillion has long been considered unfilmable, unadaptable, because of how long it is, the complex things that happen in it. And honestly, I don't want to see, when you were talking about like Middle Earth, and I realized you were talking about an adaptation of the First Age and stuff, I was scared to death you were going to say the Children of Huron, because that's something I would love to see him do. The Silmarillion, I don't want anyone to touch Silmarillion, and if they do, I would want it to be like what Amazon's doing right now with their Lord of the Rings, is making a series, because there's just too much for a movie. There's too much in the Silmarillion to make it good and worthy of that book.
Okay, and what exactly is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? It is a book. It is an adaptation. So how many scary stories are the kids going to tell? Are they going to tell just 3 stories, then bada bing, bada boom, you're done? Or are they going to tell like 5 stories over 2 films? Or are they going to do 10 stories over 5 films? Like, how drawn out is this franchise going to get?
That's where it's a little different for Scary Stories, is where you can. It's an anthology. You can pick and choose which stories you can. You can have that. It still has completion. I'm saying that you could have Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and not take every story from the book, and people wouldn't even know, because they're complete stories in and of themselves. With Silmarillion, you couldn't take stuff out. Well, you could, but you couldn't take stuff. You couldn't make it one movie and have everything make sense in terms of what the book is. You just couldn't do it.
Well, again, like what's the cutoff point for Scary Stories? Like, you know, and how much time do we spend with the kids? Because obviously, if they're the ones telling the story, we have to be invested in them, so that way they get scared when they're telling the stories around the campfire. So how much time are we spending between the story that we're seeing on the screen that they are telling, and then they themselves? What's the time differential going to be? Who's going to write this thing? Who's going to produce it? What kind of score are we going to have? It's like,
that doesn't matter. It's about what movie should Guillermo del Toro make, and it's Scary Stories, not Silmarillion.
Time. All right. 5 minutes is up. The final closing arguments can proceed. Isaac, take it away whenever you're ready.
Okay. Like I said, how I ended the main argument, I really don't know about that stuff, and I don't know about the music, and I don't know about the cinematography and how much time is going to spend on each character and which stories he's going to choose. That's the point. I want Guillermo del Toro to make this. I don't want to make Scary Stories. I would, but this isn't my version. This is just like an idea of what he could do. I want Guillermo del Toro to make this because he's been interested in making this. That's all I want. His vision on screen of that adaptation. The Silmarillion, I want to see the Silmarillion because I'm a Lord of the Rings fan and the Middle Earth fan, but I would want to see that in a long format. I don't think you could do that story justice in a movie, even if it was directed by Guillermo del Toro. I want Guillermo del Toro's next movie to be a passion project horror movie. Like, he's always had respect in Hollywood, right? This Oscar win could do something more for him. And you've talked about marketability and all that stuff. He does have something different than he did when he made the masterpiece that is Crimson Peak and stuff like that. Like, yes, I just said that because I just wanted to, because I love that movie. But he can make money now as an Oscar-winning director. There is a possibility of that. And if there was ever a chance for him to, or there was ever a time for him to take a chance on something he was passionate about, it's now. And this is the movie I would want him to do.
Ready. Take it away, Chris.
all right. When trying to adapt something like Scary Stories, it is impossible to tell what's going to get cut out, what's going to get added to it, what's going to even be the story. Because yes, there is, because Scary Stories is essentially just an anthology series of horror stories that, we see through the audience, see through basically the audience, or sorry, we the audience see through the storyteller's eyes. All up, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, that sort of anthology thing. Whereas with Silmarillion, it's it's a complete story that all you have to do is maybe tweak a few things to help the audience understand the flow of it. And again, it's not it, and neither of us said it has to be one film. It could be several films. It could be a franchise. It could be a trilogy, whatever. The reason why I am so personally gung-ho on wanting to see another story in the Middle-earth setting is we've had 3 films that were great, 3 films that were crap. Much like Star Wars before it, sadly, the Middle-earth is batting 500. Let's get it out of this slump. Let's get it back to its former glory. And Scary Stories could go to another director like a Neil Marshall who really understands the horror, or it could go to someone else who is well established within the horror genre, like a Mike Flanagan, or another one of their contemporaries, Daniel Espinosa. Guillermo is a great person who for Scary Stories, but he's not the only one out there. I feel that with the First Age and the setting of Silmarillion, Guillermo is the only person who could actually bring that to life, and I think he should actively pursue that.
Peter Jackson.
He had his chance.
Okay, good arguments by both of you. Chris, I'm not going to lie. As soon as I actually called the "Are You Afraid of the Dark" reference even before you brought it up, I was like, "Damn! If only he had pitched that Legends of the Hidden Temple movie, that would have been 10 thumbs up."
Oh my god! Yes, that'd be amazing.
But I think I do have a clear winner here. I think I do have a clear winner here. I think Isaac, I think Dohmen did a good job countering your argument about the "Are You Afraid of the Dark?" Even though you're not familiar with it, I sure am, and it's pretty much completely tenfold of what he was saying. Also, I think your argument was kind of hurt when you talked about different stories, which I think kind of hurts your argument when it's pitching the next story, because then you have kind of more to pitch, and you didn't really get a whole lot into the different stuff that you want done. Whereas with the Dohmen's idea, even though it could be multiple films, we are aware of that story, so it is a little bit easier to get a grasp of. I think Chris also did a good job of talking about there are other directors that can do the scary story genre. I mean, we had Jordan Peele with Get Out. There's a lot of different stuff that can be done in the horror element. It doesn't necessarily have to be Del Toro. So I'm going to have to give the point to Chris on that. It's going to be 2-1. Isaac's still ahead, though.
Don't worry, folks. I'm not winning this match.
I don't know about that. I've not been great in the speed round, so we'll see.
So we get to the final round. Just for a heads up, neither one of you have used your round extension, so I'll just open it up. Does either of you wish to use it now?
I don't.
No.
I guess I don't blame you for not wanting to debate a little bit more, because we're talking about Owen Wilson, folks, and everybody wants to talk more about Owen Wilson.
Wow.
So the question at hand is, what is the funniest movie starring Owen Wilson? So we're going to start with Chris. Chris, take it away. Which is the funniest movie starring Owen Wilson?
I mean, the funniest one is clearly Armageddon, when he just dies the most hilarious, horrifying death of all time, getting destroyed by asteroids. I'm kidding, of course. I'm going to take us back to the year 2001, when the idea of doing an absurdist comedy about the fashion industry seemed unlikely. It seemed stupid. It seemed like it couldn't work. And yet we have quite possibly one of the strangest, most surreal, but brilliant comedies of all time. That is Zoolander. And yes, it is a Ben Stiller film, but Owen Wilson's character of Hansel plays such a huge part in the film as as Derek Zoolander's rival slash best friend slash bromance. You don't know what the hell they are. You just wish they'd get a room. But Zoolander was such an enigma for its time that it was the peak of almost everybody in that film's career. It was the peak of Will Ferrell, it was the peak of Ben Stiller, and it was arguably the peak of Owen Wilson, who would probably top out with the movie that I'm sure my opponent today has selected.
Interesting. If I didn't pick that,
about that. So,
the movie that
Isaac, take it away.
Yeah. Wedding Crashers. I picked Wedding Crashers.
Yep.
Yeah, was okay. Yeah. Oh, what an interesting pick. Zoolander versus Wedding Crashers. Wedding Crashers is the story of two friends who crash weddings to hook up with girls, and Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson play the friends. They crash one wedding where they both meet people who will affect their relationship and their approach to life and relationships and wedding crashing in general. And it's a fantastic story, a movie. It kind of is surprising. I'm gonna be honest here. I'll be full honest here. I haven't seen most of Owen Wilson's movies, and when this question was asked, I hadn't seen this either. So I literally just shot in the dark, went with one of his movies that I knew he was in. So then I went and watched it, and I actually I couldn't believe it, because I don't care for comedies. I'll put that out there. I'm very critical of comedies. I have a weird sense of humor. Most broad comedies don't get me. Zoolander, especially, I'll put that out there. Zoolander is not my type of comedy at all. Wedding Crashers gets me. It has a soft center that was surprising to me. It had heart. It had moments that were objectively funny on a broad in a broad sense. That really I don't know what the word is, but it was just funny in a pure sense. You didn't have to be unique like I am with comedies. I think anybody can appreciate Wedding Crashers as a funny movie. Bradley Cooper, Christopher Walken, Vince Vaughn, they all have their moments. Rachel McAdams, they all have their moments where their jokes just land. And it's you can't argue that. Zoolander has hit or miss moments, I think, and I just can't wait to talk about Zoolander. Let's just get into this.
And don't factor in the sequel. It's killing me to put this movie as my argument.
Okay, so interesting picks from each member. Let's go ahead and get this debate period started. Take it away. 5 minutes will start when one of you starts talking.
Oh, Zoolander. You can't talk about this movie without talking about the sequel, can you?
Yes, you can. You can easily talk about it because they're both, because the first one is its own standalone independent story that did not set up a sequel, did not require a sequel. It's just its own thing. So let's just push that out right now. If Wedding Crashers had a sequel, we'd be saying the same thing, because I'm sure that sequel would have sucked. Now, let's make something perfectly clear. The question was, what's the funniest movie starring Owen Wilson? Sadly, Owen Wilson's probably the 6th funniest person in Wedding Crashers, because you have the character of Todd, the "Death, you are my bitch lover." That person, he's above Owen Wilson. You have Christopher Walken, who's above Owen Wilson. Bradley Cooper, who's above Owen Wilson. Vince Vaughn and Esla Fisher, who steals the entire effing movie from Owen Wilson. So the question,
but you're gonna say Owen Wilson is the funniest part of Zoolander.
He's the 2nd funniest. There's the difference. The funniest person is Will Ferrell, then Owen Wilson, then Ben Stiller. Because Ben Stiller, whatever. It's, whatever. That's fine. That's fine. It's neither here nor there. To be honest, neither of these films are that great per se, because they're both broad comedies that hit the perfect niche at the perfect time.
Zoolander's not broad. I think Zoolander's pretty niche.
No, okay, again, like I said, it has niche moments, but when it hits the broad moments, it hits them correctly, which is why it still works for me. For example, like the whole modeling sequence with David Bowie, yeah, it's great, it's great. Whereas, and again, none of the funniest things that happen in the movie Wedding Crashers happen to Owen Wilson. The funniest things happen to Vince Vaughn. He gets shot in the ass. He has to get bullets pulled out of his ass. He has Esla Fisher on top of him naked with a sock in his mouth. And they do that. Again, it invalidates the question.
No, it doesn't, because the question isn't which movie is Owen Wilson the funniest in. It's which movie is the funniest that stars with Owen Wilson. It's about the movie. It's not about Owen Wilson being funny. I agree with you. I think the funniest moments in the movie is Vince Vaughn and is it Isla? I don't know how to.
I just say Esla Fisher.
Miss Fisher. Those are the funniest moments in the movie.
Mrs. Baron Cohen. We'll go with that.
Right, there you go. I think Owen Wilson, you're right, isn't one of the even top 5 funniest things about Wedding Crashers. I agree with you, but it's not about that. It's about what movie's funnier, and Wedding Crashers is just a funnier movie than Zoolander. From
your perspective.
Well, that's true, but all movies...
Though I am playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Zoolander is a lot more niche than Wedding Crashers. It has a weird. And yet, which one has the stronger legacy? Because people still if you want to talk about if you talk about legacy, we're bringing in the second one.
Zoolander 1 today. People are still talking about the gas the gas sequence. Fine, because you want to
hold up
because you want to make it not about just Owen Wilson. Great, well, let's do that then. Because people still talk about David Bowie's appearance. They still talk about Will Ferrell and his freakouts. They talk about just every moment of that film that they fucking can, because people are so obsessed with this movie, and I have no fucking clue as to why. But hey, people are weird and they have weird tastes.
But would you say Hitler's laughing at it?
No, he's not, because there's too many. No, I'm not finished.
Wow,
Matt, you are cutting this out.
Yeah. Okay. I am so I don't understand. I'm with you. I don't understand the love for Zoolander, right? I really don't. I watched it because of the sequel, and I know you don't want to talk about the sequel, but I watched it because it was coming out. So I went back and watched the first one because I had never seen it, and it was just this is getting a sequel. This is what is funny. It's got a few funny moments, the gas or the Will Ferrell, 1 or 2 moments with him, but most of it is so over the top. It turns me off to the rest of it. There's nothing that turns you off in Wedding Crashers. It's funny. It's there. It's in your face, and you laugh. I'm sorry. Even the over the top stuff with Walken's son being creepy and sneaking around. Exactly. You're laughing right now because it's objectively funny.
That part of it is. Whereas something like Bradley Cooper, he's just an unlikable prick. Which great, exactly. But
hilarious.
But look at where Bradley Cooper has gone since.
Right.
People want to forget about the fact that he was in this movie, and a lot of his earlier films, he was just this unlikable douchebag before The Hangover, when he was finally funny and somewhat likable.
Time. All right. This has been another interesting debate for something that we both share so much about, Owen Wilson. And just had to bring up another goddamn
I didn't
Hitler
do
reference.
it this time.
If there's a joke I go for it, I'm sorry.
I didn't say you did it, Chris.
Jeremy,
it is kind of funny. It is kind of funny though. As soon as you brought up Hitler, somehow the connection turned out to be better. So I guess there is some charm to it. So let's let's get this round over with, shall we? Dohmen, closing argument. Zoolander, funnier Owen Wilson movie, maybe.
Okay. The main reason I have to always pick Zoolander in this fight is the simple fact that Zoolander has lasted in the cultural zeitgeist longer. Wedding Crashers held up there for a while, but after both Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson were just getting into the late 2000s, early 2010s, and they were just delivering crappy movie after crappy movie, people honestly wanted to forget about the stuff like Wedding Crashers. And sadly, again, going back to my point about Bradley Cooper, is that, you know, for some of the films that some of these actors had not so great performances in, like Rachel McAdams or, again, Bradley Cooper, people are trying to forget about that because it wasn't their best work. It's funny and it has great moments, but it didn't showcase a lot of the talent at their height, at their peak. Whereas with Zoolander, you saw Will Ferrell and Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson at arguably their craziest. They're taking the most risks, and did it always pay off? That depends on just literally you as the viewer and your taste, because objectively speaking, more people are still talking about the first Zoolander like it just came out last year. Simple as that.
All right, Isaac, take it away.
Okay. The reason they keep talking about Zoolander like it came out last year is because the Zoolander movie did come out in the last couple years, and it ruined whatever legacy the first one did have. It lasted longer in public consciousness because they made a crappy sequel. The reason that we got so many Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn movies later on that turned out to be not so good is because they were retrying to capture the lightning in the bottle that is Wedding Crashers. You said that this Zoolander was these comedians at their peak. I'm sorry, Ferrell is at his peak in Anchorman, Stiller, and Tropic Thunder. They hadn't reached their peak yet. This is below the peak. I do think that this is Vaughn and Wilson at their peaks. And you can talk about how Bradley Cooper, yeah, this is one of his early roles where he's a dick and he's not this Bradley Cooper that we know today. That's what makes it so interesting to go back and watch. When I watched it, I didn't even know Bradley Cooper was in it. And I saw him pop up. I'm like, oh, it's Bradley Cooper. And then he gave me something that was different and funny and unexpected. So I don't see that as a negative. I think that's interesting that he developed like that. So yeah, I'm sorry. The reason Zoolander has lasted, like I said, is people thought it was funnier than it was. They remember the small moments, and they got the sequel that gave them exactly what they were asking for. I don't see much of a difference between the first Zoolander and the second Zoolander. Maybe that's because neither movie was made for me. But Wedding Crashers is a movie I can get behind. It's genuinely just a funny movie with that's beginning to end funny. It's got a good concept. You want to talk about Will Ferrell having a great moment? Will Ferrell at the end of Wedding Crashers, that is a great moment in the house. That when he calls. He's calling to his mother. Even you've said you're fighting devil's advocate, and you've laughed at the moments that I brought up.
The meatloaf!
The meatloaf! I'm just going to end my argument there. I think that says it all.
And yes,
All right, that was a very interesting.
Oh, guys, no, I was just going to quickly say, yeah, obviously, guys, in case you can't tell, I'm not a fan of Zoolander, but I had this and I had that movie in Shanghai Noon as my only options. And I'm like, do I go for the more culturally inappropriate one or just the safe one? I went for the safe one.
I would have loved to see your Shanghai Noon.
I have to rewatch it. I'm a little scared too. All right, sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead.
All right, so each of you came up with some interesting points about the other one. This was really close until I think the closing arguments. I think somebody did pull ahead at the end. And I think it was the fact that Isaac did bring up the fact that, there was other actors in, Zoolander that didn't quite, hit their prime yet. You did bring up Tropic Thunder with Stiller. Did bring up other Anchorman with Ferrell. I think that was the turning point in the fact that, it was pretty much, Owen Wilson, and he hadn't really, hit his stride yet. Whereas Wedding Crashers, it was pretty much him he was a much more prominent role in his movie than in Zoolander. So I think I am going to have to give the point to Isaac there with Wedding Crashers. That was really, really close, though. Either one of you could have taken that, but the closing argument was the turning point there at the end. So
You can ask Jeremy before you join the video call. I said that this was the argument that I was looking forward to the least. I didn't care about that argument.
Wow. It's like
Wow.
you didn't even try.
Wow. I do like him in the Night at the Museum movies.
And I do love him in Midnight in Paris. I just...
Did you see the movie last year, Wonder? Where
Wonder. Dude, that was in my top 10 of last year. Like, his performance was so perfect.
Yeah, I want that Owen Wilson more.
Please. I want that Julia Roberts more. Good God. Hell, they should just play married couples in real life, or play married couples more often. Like, because they honestly had a lot of great chemistry.
It did.
All right, so to recap, we're going into the speed round. Isaac is currently up 3-1, which basically means Chris is going to have to run the table in all three of these speed round questions. Can be done, though. It's certainly possible. Chris certainly has the movie knowledge to get some good answers in with some of these questions. So, without further ado, first speed round question is going to be game point for Isaac. The first question is, who is the best movie character whose name begins with an A?
Best movie character whose name begins with an A.
First or last? Either.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, Atticus Finch. Jesus.
I go 10,
Adonis Creed.
9, 8, 7.
Adonis Creed.
6,
Adonis Creed. He said.
5. All right. No Austin Powers or Ace Ventura. That makes me sad.
No Aragorn, son of Arathorn.
Ha! Dang it.
And you picked Adonis Creed. I'm shocked you didn't pick the other Creed. But, oh well. So, all right. Chris, you got Atticus Finch. You can take it away whenever you're ready.
Atticus Finch is a role model for people all over the world, not just for one particular point in time, but because he's from a timeless story that tells a timeless message. And Adonis is simply underdeveloped at this moment. He's only been in one film, and sure, we know a bit about him. We know he's the illegal son of Apollo Creed, but that's about it. We know that he's got some personal struggles to get through, but we haven't really seen his full development. But that's because we need more than one film. You only need the one film for Atticus Finch and everything that he stands for and everything he tries to accomplish and everything he does accomplish in the course of To Kill a Mockingbird, hence why he's the greatest character with the letter A.
Take it away, Isaac.
Uphill battle. Atticus Finch is who we aspire to be. He's not who we relate to be. He's an American icon that's put on a pedestal as this is what we want to believe about our past. But we don't know much about his character. I can't relate to Atticus Finch on a personal level. I don't know his story. Adonis Creed, I see him start from nothing and desire something and go for something and learn about himself and learn about the world around him and develop as a person. I don't see that with Atticus. I just see an ideal to strive for, and like that's not a character. It's a caricature. Adonis is a character that goes through an arc that we relate to and are interested in.
All right, 15-second rebuttals. Chris, take it away whenever you're ready.
Adonis is only a character that we relate to because we've already studied Rocky's story. We had 6 films with Rocky Balboa to understand the world of Creed and to understand what his dad went through. The fact that his dad was killed at the hands of Ivan Drago and how much that probably fucked up Adonis. Whereas we only had 1 film to study Atticus' story, and we were watching it through the eyes of his daughter Scout, who was our channel to this great man.
Isaac, whenever you're ready.
Exactly. We see it through the eyes of Scout. Scout's the character we relate to, not him. He's somebody that we look up to, but it's not a character. It's the best character. You don't need Rocky movies to understand Adonis. I've had people who have never seen a Rocky movie love that movie and love that character because you don't need those movies. He stands on his own as a character, as the strongest character with the letter A.
That was a good argument by both of you. Dohmen made a good argument with the fact that, with only 1 movie, he does stand out. Isaac technically could make the same case with his character. And I think the fact that Isaac did do a good job talking about the relatability, and that is what people can compare to make a great movie character. I think I'm going to have to give the point to Isaac on that, and I think that is going to give the game to Isaac on this by a score of 4-1.
Well done.
Fight. I didn't. Whew. I thought of Atticus right as you said it, and as soon as you said it, I couldn't think of anything else. That was terrible. Oh, wow. Good fight.
So score-wise, it didn't look as doesn't look as close as it was, but that was a really good back-and-forth matchup by both of you. So let's get some closing arguments from each of you. Isaac, you had a very, very tough opponent here. Even though the score, as I said, it looks a lot more wide-ranged than it looks, I think Chris gave you a pretty hell of a fight there. It really had you on the ropes on a couple of them, but you really found a way to bail yourself out on a couple of those. So do you have any closing words for your opponent here?
I mean, good fight. I went into this probably more nervous than I have against anybody else. I know your movie knowledge, and the Star Wars question is one I did not expect to win. And the last question threw me for a loop. So you gave me more of a fight than what the scoreboard reflects for sure, and you definitely should be proud of that fight for sure.
Thank you. And
good words by our winner.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, so sorry, Jeremy. Thank you, Isaac. I'll admit, coming into this fight, I was a little nervous because obviously, there are plenty of people here who you see them from a distance and you're not 100% sure about their skill set. And then once you start seeing them in action, even if it's just from watching a video that they perform in, and obviously, dude, I've seen a couple of your matches and you're good. You are very good at what you do. And here's the thing. Again, this was not a close fight. I do feel I was gypped on just one question, but that's neither here nor there. And definitely, man, any other time you wanna have another go at this, I will happily accept the challenge, and we can certainly try this again and bring another awesome Hawaiian shirt.
Will do. I have a bunch of them.
Yeah, and for the record, Chris, your Hitler reference did not hurt any of your arguments in any way. So just so you know, there was no bias about bringing up a German dictator. So that was so yeah. Even though Chris kind of downplayed the fact that it wasn't as close, I think it was a really close fight. And I'm the host, so I guess my opinion is the only one that matters in that case. So that's going to do it for this edition of Movie Battleground. We're still into round 2. Whenever this match can get up. Hope you all enjoyed it. So always make sure that you watch all the content that's on the Worldwide Movie Games Network. This right here, Movie Battleground, Full Metal Trivia. There will be trivia, the whole 9 yards. Mr. Chris Dohmen, I'm sure, appreciates very much. But with that, that's going to close out this episode. Let's go to Isaac. the winner, where can the good people find you?
Oh, you can find me on YouTube at Isaac Horvat. Do a lot of gaming on there. Actually, I just posted a video where I played with a big YouTuber named Aculite randomly. That was really weird, and you can hear me freak out and fangirl all over the place on that video. I'm on Twitter at Filmer2013, so hit me up on any of my terrible arguments this round. Please do. Hit me up
All
about
right. Good stuff. And Mr. Dohmen, other than this very network right here, where can the good people find you?
Yes, you follow me on Twitter at my band Last Shot Redemption at LSAR Band MN. I might be having a new song dropping soon, so keep an eye out for that. And you can find me on Stardust, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Chris Skywalker Dohmen. Thanks for having me, guys.
You can find me at WWEJTH on Twitter, and you can find my own personal JTH Reacts on YouTube. But with that being said, that's going to do it for this edition of Movie Battleground. Until next time, I'm your host, JTH. Thank you for watching, and until next time, we all bid you adieu.